So 2 years after my marriage, freshly married, trying to make the wife happy, sitting at home watching cable TV, not going to mention the company, and we have a problem. The channel she wants all of a sudden disappears. Definitely not a problem when you're trying to please your wife and make sure that the honeymoon stage lasts for a very long time. So you do what the manly thing to do, you're like, don't worry, I'll take care of it. Pick up the phone and you call the company. And then you get a person on the other line. You don't know if it's the end of their shift. You don't know what it is. But you try to explain the problem. Now you want to watch the channel that your wife wants to watch. They're trying to help. They can't. They keep referencing some billing problem. And I keep saying, I don't really care right now. I just want to get this for my wife. The person on the other end couldn't identify my problem. Hello, how are you? They couldn't identify my problem. And therefore
Sorry, Malak. Did you think it was a 9 o'clock start?
No, I knew it was 8:30.
Oh,
I
okay.
got off of the wrong exit.
Oh.
I live in Whitby, so don't really know anything about this neighborhood.
We're just starting and we had 12 people scheduled to be here and we had 3.
But last time, remember what happened? Like only 2 or 3 of us here, and
Yes.
nobody showed up. So.
Alright, sorry Malak.
No problem. So I was just talking about an issue I had with a cable company, and I wanted to get my wife the show she wanted to watch, the channel she wants. It disappeared. I called, and someone on the other line who thinks they're trying to help me, but they're not identifying my problem. And I keep saying, listen, I don't care right now. I just need this to go. No, but you have a billing issue. And it starts escalating. It gets very frustrating. They want to solve the billing issue now. I want to get the channel now. What ends up happening is we escalate. My wife doesn't get what she wants, so I'm not happy. She's not happy. I'm not giving them my credit card to add anything else on. I hang up the phone and I tell my wife we're switching companies. Okay? The story goes as follows. We've been married for 10 years. We never ever went back to that company. And you know why? Because it left a very bad taste in my mouth. And that experience, I won't forget. And that was in an era where Twitter wasn't even that popular. So, now we'll talk about another experience. Just last week I was in a conference. I landed in an airport in Chicago. God bless Chicago, O'Hare. Never land there without a problem, right? Also another company that I will not mention. I walk in, by the time I make it to go pick up my bags, I was the last person. He took my bag, put it in a room. Hey, where's the person from this company? Oh, they're not here, but I need my bag. I have a conference. I have a presentation to give tomorrow, just like my laptop, everything. Oh, we're sorry. So when can I get there? Oh, after the shift change. When is the next shift change? Tomorrow morning. You were the last flight. What? How does this work? So here's what I do now. I take my phone, because times have changed. I get on Twitter. The first thing I do is I do @ and the name of that airline. And I said, I'm a really pissed off customer. I'm stuck in O'Hare. I could see my bag through a glass door. There's not one person from your company here that has the right customer service to get me an attendant, because apparently there's shift change. And I've never seen someone arrive so quickly to come service me, because all of a sudden I can tarnish their brand in a second. So although in the first situation I switched companies and went to another provider, and after that I did so, well, maybe 10 of my friends I told the story to, and I'm not sure if they propagated to others, but out of the 10 of my friends, 6 of them switched companies with me. On Twitter, on Facebook, on any of those social media, depending on who's the person that's tweeting and how much followers they have, and how angry they are and decide to put you in your head, your entire brand can get tarnished in just a few minutes. So we live in a new time. So the question is, it's not about the brand. What is the brand? The brand is nothing but the people representing the brand. Wouldn't you agree? If that customer service at the beginning had a consultative mindset, he knew how to ask the right questions to see where my needs are so he can, I would have gladly, most probably paid. Because all I wanted was to get that channel for my wife. So how do we train our front line? How do we empower our front line and the ones backing them up? How do we have a culture that is customer-centric? How do we have a culture of innovation? How do we have a culture of execution? How do we, on purpose, instill a culture to get the results that we want at the end? And this is what we're going to talk about today. How to increase our organization's bottom line by simply focusing internally. And why did I call it the bottom line? One, it was to get everybody's attention to come here because everybody cares about the bottom line. But when I left and took 6 people with me, and I'm assuming others who had to deal with that individual might have had the same experience, that all affects the bottom line. When all of a sudden an airline pisses me off and their reputation is they're not responsive, they don't have customer service, well, people will have a tendency to go towards others because now we have options. We're in a world where we have so much options, right? The internet has made it so easy for us to connect. I don't have to take a taxi anymore, I can take Uber. Actually now I can take Uber or Lyft, right? I don't have to walk to the restaurant and have to fight with my friends which restaurant we're going to go to. We can get Uber Eats. I don't have to physically go, and this might hurt what I'm saying, to a Staples or a Tiger's or whatever other physical store. I can sit on my desk, and while I'm playing with my phone, an idea pops in my head, and I can go to one of the online retailers and choose. And if I have brand loyalty towards a Staples or any of the other brick and mortar, I can go on their website and buy from there. So how do we get that mindset? So we'll talk about it from a few points. First of all, what is the makeup of a business? Because for us to be able to go, especially as HR professionals, we touch the people which are in every segment of the business. You need to have a holistic understanding of the business, right? Second, how to make a business case to improve the ROI. Because at the end of the day, you still have to go to the CFO or your CIO or your CEO to go ask for funds for your training. Show of hands, is anyone here from the province of Quebec, or is everybody Ontario?
Would be from Ontario.
Does Ontario have a 1% rule like we have in Quebec? I just want to, like a 1% of your payroll goes towards training, otherwise, no?
No, we don't have that yet.
Okay.
That'd be nice.
It is, because it helps when you go ask for budget. So I had that in my office in engineering, where 1% of your payroll, if you don't use the funds, the government will take the money away from you. So it's their incentive to allow you to say to reinvest your money back in training. So it kind of
How does
helps.
that process work in Quebec, Malak? So the government gives you 1%?
So you have 1% of your payroll, as long as your payroll is above $1 million. And once your payroll is above $1 million, 1% of that payroll, you're allowed to take it and use it into training. When you do, from whatever income tax you have to pay to the government, they deduct that
Is that a
amount.
government subsidy?
Sort of? It's like a tax credit.
Okay, like a co-op tax
So
credit too.
you get, but it's like a dollar for dollar tax credit. So you spend $100, you get tax credit. So in Quebec, that is very good, because one, you end up putting money, it has to be training in Quebec industry, they have to be registered with Revenu Quebec, so they're energizing the training industry in Quebec. But at the same time, it's incentivizing all management to constantly train their employees. One of the reasons why you'll notice a lot of innovation happens in Montreal, a lot of innovation happens in Quebec. Things happen on purpose, right? So how do you create that fertile ground for innovation? That's why I'm going to talk about innovation after. Companies that are innovative happen on purpose, right? There's so many McKinsey articles right now and Harvard Business Review articles that are studying startups and tech companies, how they're able to spur, innovation and technology so quickly, while other companies are much slower at doing it. And when we get to that, we'll talk about what does it take to actually have fertile grounds. But part of it is training. I can tell you that up front, because one of the reasons Quebec was the first ones to come up with 3D animation, so soft image. Right now, two of the biggest artificial intelligence companies are out of Quebec, like in Montreal. We have an aerospace industry, we have a pharmaceutical industry. So it's investment in training, positioning by the province on where we want to grow. So we're going to focus from an organization point of view on the training aspect. So there are three segments that make up a business, right? Every business will have to have some sort of product or service offering. Wouldn't you agree? Otherwise, they're not in business. You're either offering a service or you're offering a product and you're making people pay for it. How do you actually do that? Well, there are three components to every single business. It's not rocket science. We've got people, processes, tools, and technology, and I combine them all together, and then organizations. When you have people, which is normally HR thinks they're responsible here, right? But believe it or not, you go across the board, you're responsible for employee retention. That's why most organizations these days do a voice of the employee and voice of the customer to understand what's keeping people. That's why companies try to put benefits in place, because they have to compete for talent. More importantly, culture. Companies have realized and recognized culture is paramount. You're going to have culture no matter what. The question is, are you going to have the culture you want? Because the moment you have 5 people, you're going to start having a culture. Are you going to have toxic culture? Are you going to have a servant leadership model type of culture? What are you on purpose doing to grow your people and to grow that culture? Performance, motivation, onboarding. So if you're in an industry like retail, where you have a high turnover, you're constantly onboarding people. If you have a call center, you're constantly onboarding people. How do you consistently, so each one of these things can have a positive or a negative, right? And that's the point I'm trying to make. Knowledge base. We'll talk about knowledge base later, but I want to put a seed in your minds. If you want to understand how technology companies have outperformed everyone in the last 10 years, knowledge base. Software companies do this very well. If you think about it, you hire an employee, sometimes you train him, he gets experience. When he leaves, he takes the stuff between his head and walks away. You got product or you've got output from him, but the knowledge goes with him. The expertise goes with him. Companies have learned. Software companies have learned. Technology companies have learned. They create knowledge-based databases. Like, you know how Wikipedia works? We'll talk about that later. You create your own wikis. And you start training people to start sharing their knowledge and building and having continuous improvement. Process and tools. So I started with compliance on top because I knew I was talking to HR. Because there are processes, right? Compliance, whether it's from HR compliance, like harassment in the workplace, diversity, and all that stuff, or safety, or export control, in some of the stuff, we work in. If you're working on any machinery, the moment it leaves the Canadian border, it falls in export control room. If your guys are not educated about it, you can have fines. Pratt & Whitney Canada got fined $75 million because some of the employees shared the wrong data with Eurocopter, who happened to be in a joint venture with a Chinese company. So sensitive data was shared with the Chinese. $75 million. You know the effective cost of them fixing their ITAR issue was what? $400 million. Okay, so you might not have the same severity if you're not in a military space. However, breaking export rules has a cost. Having a harassment case in your office has cost. Innovation. So your processes, I go back. If you set the right culture, if you put the right tools, if you generate the right groups and right setup, you can have innovation. There's a nice McKinsey article that talks about how, for the longest times, we did only what we knew how to do. Henry Ford introduced the production line, and that seemed to work. It created efficiencies. So we've set up our businesses just like that. We started working like machines. And something would start, we'd even make our process flow maps, we'd go, and it would have to pass by here, 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 and go out. And it's just constantly, it's one setup, it gets done well, and it's operational. But a new study figured out that all the young startups and tech companies like the Googles and the Amazons of the world, what they do well is they started acting like living organisms and not like machines, like cells. So you'd have a cell with a leader in between and a team, multidisciplinary all around, that are empowered. Just like a skin cell here. It gets the command from the brain, but it knows its job. It goes, it does what it has to do, and when it's time to, it's done, it flies away, right? Their job is to go to market, try, and if they have to fail quickly so we can try something else. They're empowered. They don't have to go through politics. You know what's the worst thing that will stop innovation? Politics. A culture of heavy, toxic politics. I could talk for hours about politics in the workplace because the moment you do have more than 5 people, you will always have some degree. Politics are not bad. Politicians give it a bad rap. Toxic politics, where people can't speak their mind, where people can't oppose, where people think that in a hierarchy you can't speak upwards, you can't flow ideas, right? You can't have innovation with that kind. And then consistency. Part of HR's role is to make sure that we have fairness across the board, that we have consistency, whether it's in our pay grades, our bonuses, the way people get promoted. So if you're not training your managers, if you're not training your leaders, if you're not equipping them so they can be able to equally give a woman the same opportunity as a man, then they won't. They just won't. Not because they don't want to, not because they're evil, it's because it's not in the comfort zone. It's like electricity. We always go to the path of least resistance. Last but not least, organizations. So I started with the microscopic at an individual level, and then there's the macroscopic. One of my mentors always told me, we do not manage individuals. We manage organizations. Successful leaders manage organizations. What does that mean? It means you have to step back. Even when it's your client, you got to understand the politics that are there. You got to understand the decision makers. You got to understand what gets people's heart going, what motivates people. You have to have the right incentives. You have a team of salespeople. How do you put the right incentive strategy, right? In order to get them to perform. So they don't make that one big sale and write off it for the next 5 years. How do you have that mindset? That is very important. There's the legal aspect, then there's the customer focus. Customer focus that goes back to how do you make sure your entire organization is customer centric? How do you make sure you don't have that customer service representative that turned me off of a company forever? No matter how many times they call my house and give me discounts that are significant, I just don't want to. So, in my opinion, and based on a lot of reading, we must do everything with purpose and on purpose, with the customer in mind. I'll let you guys think of that for a minute. We must do everything with purpose and on purpose with the customer in mind. So, from the social activities we do in the workplace, to the type of learning, to the type of tools we give people access to, anything that is under the corporate umbrella should be done on purpose. I'll give you guys a good example. I'm building culture in my office. Took an office that was very toxic. And my role was to transform that office into an environment where everyone wants to serve. So we agreed that our culture, the culture we want, is a servant leadership culture. Our motto had the word service in it. Yet I found nothing from what we did demonstrated service. So I took up my leaders and I served them. But then the next activity we came to do, and this is cliche, but it works. I got pans and little camping stoves, and we made hotcakes. And I asked our office coordinator to get us Nutella, honey, all different types of fruits. And I said, I want the team leads. I served you guys. It's your turn. I want everyone to physically see you serving them. So subconsciously, we didn't even have to explain it. But they started seeing their managers, which is a word I'm really trying to away from, trying to see their leaders coming and serving them. And then later we had a third activity where we said, hey, we want to serve our community. Because that's the type of culture, that's the feeling we want our brand to have, right? So the next activity we did is we chose a charity, and we said, for Christmas, we're going to serve and we're going to wrap gifts. So everyone gets involved in serving. So I've just instilled through motion the idea of people serving. I'll tell you, artificial intelligence is going to change a lot of what we do. No one should get comfortable. Because a lot of what we do, including medicine, artificial intelligence will be able to take away some of these jobs. From, if you think about it, it already started. The watches that we have that measure your pulse, your heart rate, right? Google came up with contacts that measure the glucose in your eyes to tell you your blood sugar. It's just a matter of time that you go somewhere and a smart device will plug onto you, ask you a bunch of questions, you respond, and it will refer you to a specialist. So then where do we come as humans? Where's our value added? Creativity, empathy. If we don't start instilling those in people, if as a leader, I don't know every single one of my people, what motivates them, what drives them, what makes them come to work every Monday morning, then I've failed as a leader. So, in my opinion, you want to be profitable, take care of your people, because that's where innovation starts. So, if we look inside, one of the areas where we can find waste, because waste is just the reverse of profit. So if you're making a lot of profit but you have a lot of waste, you're making less profit. Do we all agree? So if you could start going, things like employee retention. When I read the stat, I thought it should have an entire screen on its own. This was done by HR Magazine. Companies that invest $1,500 or more annually in each employee's training average 24% higher profit margins. So if you're going to do a business case, you can copy that down and put it to your manager and say, we need budget, because companies that do invest in training, it's proven, statistically proven, than companies with lower yearly training investments. That's a proven statistic. Because what happens if you don't invest? Because what I'm going to make you do is I'm going to make you do your business case in reverse. It is a very challenging exercise to do a real ROI, especially if you don't have all the measures in place. You can eventually get there. There's a lot of Fortune 100s and Fortune 500s who for the last 3 decades have been measuring performance, measuring training. They can get their ROI on training very accurately. If you're a small to mid-sized company and you don't have all those, to go even at the first round and make your business case based on how much you think that investment is going to get you, you might be in trouble, because some of the performance you will get will be tangible and some will be intangible. Culture is intangible. You'll feel it. You can't measure it. The only way you'll be able to measure it is the year after and the year after, when you do a voice of the employee. If you ask the right questions consistently, then your score, if whoever designed your score did it properly, will be well. Everyone following so far? Good? So let's see what happens if you no invest in learning. Employers need to spend the equivalent of 6 to 9 months of an employee's salary in order to find and train the replacement. That's from the SHRM, that's the Society for Human Resources in the United States. That's a staggering number. So you can actually go do your business case, see how much 6 to 9 months is worth. You can even be on the conservative side and just use 6 months of one of your employees and say, if we don't train and retain people, when people leave, the cost is 6 other months. When we're getting zero value, we're just spending money. So if we're going to spend the money anyways, might as well train people and give them value. Losing an employee can cost anywhere from 16% of an hourly untrained employee to 213% for a highly trained position. Say an executive, for example, is making $120,000 a year. If he or she leaves, the true loss to the company could be $255,000, if not more. So that's just from a training point of view, the knowledge they took when they walked out the door. The tribal knowledge, right? So we're trying to eliminate ISO price to eliminate tribal knowledge, but there's still some of that because we're not capturing knowledge well. A new employee can take up to 2 full years to reach the same level of productivity as an existing staff member. These are staggering. I mean, on all the stuff I just said right now alone, you should be able to pull those and make your business case. Okay? But wait, there's more. Around 40% of employees who do not receive adequate training leave their post within a year. That's a challenge we had at the beginning when I first started at the design center. Is we were still starting. We started at 15 and 35, we didn't have the infrastructure to have all the types of training. And because some people were afraid for their career, especially millennials, by the way, if they feel like there's no career progress, they don't have the patience. There's no loyalty to the company. They'll just apply, go somewhere else. And they just increase their value, by the way. There's more. Companies that offer comprehensive training, and that's based on the American Society for Training and Development, have 218 higher income per employee. You know why they have that? Because they make better products. They have better margins because their employees are better educated. They enjoy 24% higher profit margins than those who spent less on training, and they generate 6% higher shareholder return if the training expenditure per employee increases by $680. So there's shareholder value. So now we're not just talking bottom line, we're talking value to the shareholder. Now, the intangibles. Happiness. Happiness leads to a 12% spike in productivity, while unhappy workers prove 10% less productive. Actually, funny anecdote that I didn't think was true, but I had to go research it, and it ended up being true. People like myself who work very hard, work around the clock, end up feeling very guilty that our kids might get affected by it and might feel like we're not with them. Statistically, bullies are not kids of high performance and high working parents. They're actually the kids of parents who are miserable at work. Employees who are not happy, who are not content at work, come home and work becomes a burden. And that frustration that they can't take out on their boss or their colleagues, they take out at home. And you know who's the sponge that absorbs all that stuff? The children. And they become angry children because all they see is anger at home. While children of highly performing individuals who manage to find their own balance, doesn't necessarily have to be the 8 to 5 and all that stuff. They found the balance. Just like I was talking when I first came in, I had to move my flight so I can attend my kid's soccer game because it meant a lot to him. We worked around my schedule, his schedule, we made it happen. But parents that are happy at work produce happy kids. I just thought it would be like a fun fact. Because even Google, companies that invest in employee support and satisfaction tend to succeed in generating happier workers. Google saw employee satisfaction rise 37% after making investment in its workers' happiness. Hint, hint, employee happiness doesn't come from foosball and ping pong tables and snacks in the cafeteria. These are some tools. Literally, employee happiness comes from satisfaction from what they do 8 hours a day. It's putting people in the right jobs. And that requires you knowing your people. It goes back to the first thing, it's all about people. We had an employee who the customer complained about. They couldn't do the job, they were not performing. All the signs and symptoms said, you must terminate that employee. But I said, guys, we claim to have a servient leadership. Why don't we serve the people for real? Let's sit and understand their interest. He just ended up being way too meticulous for the job he was in. He was very analytical minded. People couldn't spot that till we sat and had the conversation. So whatever he was doing in his job, the client would ask for something and he would dig so deep, and the client was like, you're missing the point. And he would just go into rabbit holes. We moved him into an analytical position and he became a star. Top of the team. Knowing your people matters. putting the right tools in place for your people matters. So the business case. How do we put together that business case? So I showed you a whole bunch of statistics that you can already fill your business case with. Think of that. All training should have a link to business objectives. If you're going to go talk to your CEO, he's driven by results. Anyone that made it to be in the C-suite is because they're result driven. They're not about effort. So what are our, because that's how they get measured. What are our objectives? What are our targets? How are we tracking to our targets? That's the language anyone in a C-suite position should be speaking. Whether it's a private company or a public company. The difference is in a public company, that ruler gets snapped on your desk on a quarterly basis. In a private company, if the ones running the company are a bit wiser, they have a longer vision and say, it's okay to miss this quarter, we'll lose a battle to win the war. But the metric at the end of the day is a measurable metric. We are going to increase profitability by 30%. We want to increase voice of the customer by 3 points. We want to penetrate new geographies. We want to increase our pie. We want to penetrate a new market. We want to have an acquisition. There has to be some stuff. Whether it's sales, anyone familiar with the term COPQ? Cost of poor quality. If you start measuring the cost of poor quality in a call center, if we look at the cable conversation, the poor quality of that employee cost them my monthly payment to the cable company as one employee. If you add all the people that drop, whether it's a cell phone company, an internet service, a Netflix, whatever it is, for not liking the service, that's a cost of poor quality. In a manufacturing world, people that do pumps and things like that, whenever you receive goods that don't meet the drawing, and your inspector has to take it, from the moment he's measuring and it's not meeting and it's going into the bin, the hours of everyone that's going to look at it from now till they reassess if it's going to be rejected or go back, all this is cost of poor quality. It's cost of no value added. It's cost that you cannot give to the client. So a lot of companies measure cost of poor quality. And I'm trying to think of a relatable example in retail. And I can't think of one right now, but I'll come back with you. But I think cost of poor quality could be, for example, the way you position things in an aisle. And if they're not strategically positioned, and every time, because the person didn't get the proper training, they end up falling all over the place, and you end up getting damaged goods. And all these damaged goods, well, your supplier is not going to take all of them back, so you bear the cost of them. Just the fact that you have to hire people after hour to reposition them is also cost of poor quality. Don't be shy to work backwards in your business case. What is the cost of the lost opportunity? Hey, what if we don't? What happens? What is the cost of poor quality? What is the cost of loss of customers versus customer acquisition? So each company should know what's the cost of acquiring a client. Each mature company, right? You know that you have to put this many dollars in Google AdWords. You have to create all these little gizmos with your brand on it. And you've got to pay your sales guy this much. All this to get the client in the door. There's the cost of acquisition and the cost of retaining a client, right? This is money that the company's paying. They might not all track it that well, but it's money going out. So when you do your business case, you got to remind the executives and say, hey, you're paying money to get this guy in the door. not only are you losing the money he's not paying, you lost the investment to attract that client. That's a lot of money. Parts of the business case should be, and I tried to put for you the order in which to outline a successful business case. Always start with the problem formulation. Why do we need training? Why is it, in your opinion, that we need this budget? Have a little summary on top and then in bullet form, so it could be digestible. What if we don't? What are the costs? Projected improvements in dollars. We are expecting, if we give our sales guys sales training, that our sales will improve. Otherwise, why are we giving sales training? We're expecting, if we're going to give customer service, that our customer stickiness, if you know how to measure that, or our brand loyalty will increase. So you got to start thinking, how do I have measurable things? So I use voice of the employee or voice of the customer because it became almost standard. But how do you measure stickiness? You got to start figuring out ways, if you're in retail, how do you measure the traffic? How do you measure return customers? That's why companies started creating the point system, right? Canadian Tire was very smart with the Canadian Tire money at the beginning. Now everybody has point systems. Return customers are good because it costs a lot of money to acquire clients. Skills gap analysis. Actually, before I go to skills gap, make sure to identify your tangible and your intangibles. Improvement to culture, although we can't measure it directly. But a good culture will attract talent. Happiness. Employee happiness. Employee fulfillment in their career is also important. And depending, if you can segment the population of your employees, you'll realize different populations have different needs. Because definitely your generation Y, your millennials, are going to have different needs. They're hungry to learn. They want to be challenged. They actually are very good, very responsible. They're willing to do a lot, but they just want someone to speak their language. It's a very different thing than someone in his mid-career who wants new challenges to someone who's at the end of his career who, in a way, wants to see a legacy. Are you helping your employees build a legacy? Is that even part of your mantra in the company, in HR? Is that mentioned anywhere in the policies? Then you do a skills gap analysis by employees. Show of hands, I just want to, anyone here ever did a skills gap analysis? No? So do you know how to do it? Or do you guys want me to take like 2-3 minutes to walk?
Yeah, maybe it's a good idea if you did.
Okay. So every single one of your teams, so you have to kind of train the trainer. You got to sit with all your managers and say, hey, for someone to do a job in your department, what are the skills required? If you have to choose your perfect employee. And you can make it at the beginning as easy as, I need someone in Excel and I need him to be 4 stars out of 5. And I need someone that uses PowerPoint. They're going to be presenting all the time. They got to be 5 out of 5. Right? I need someone that is well-spoken in English, but passable in French, because every now and then they have to call Quebec. So in that department, that's the profile of one person. You gotta make every single one of you manager, what is the 2, 3, 4, 5 profiles that you need? And that becomes the skill needs of that department. Then you send out a survey. The survey goes to the manager and to the employee. The employee assesses himself, and the manager assesses them. Somewhere in between is the reality, right? Clearly the manager doesn't know, there's some skills that sometimes the employees have that are not being used in that department. Some guy worked in the past, and he was part of a call center, he can speak very well. In his current job, he's data entry. His boss didn't think of putting it in the skills. As HR, you should. Because you know what? If there's a drop tomorrow in the demand in that department, better than letting him go and hiring someone else, he already understands the culture of the company. See if you can reuse your people, right? Whatever happened in the 90s where companies were hiring and firing just so they can meet the numbers at the end of the quarter, they realized it was disastrous. You know why? Because they bled knowledge. Knowledge drain. Because every single one that went out took away with them something the company didn't have. So that's how you assess what you need, what you have, and somewhere in between you're going to have gaps. So you can basically make a need versus have, like a matrix, and all the areas that are empty in between, you'll start recognizing, hey, I've got 5 guys that are supposed to have presentation skills, but they don't. Maybe we should launch presentation training. And you have to train and do your homework, because some of the things your manager, especially if you have technical managers, will not think of. I'll give you a great example. I went to one of my team leads and I said, I think our team leads and our tech leads need to have negotiation skills. And he's like, no, we don't. We're engineers. We don't negotiate. This is for the sales guys. I'm like, so I didn't understand. But culturally, where he came from, negotiation is haggling. And haggling is badly perceived. And as an engineer, you don't do that. And I was like, but don't you regularly have to go back and forth with the client and understand the scope of work we have? He goes, of course. And like, don't they sometimes ask you for things that don't make sense with how much they're willing to pay? He goes, yeah. So we do a change order. I'm like, that's negotiation. So how do you do it without pissing off the client? How do you go and give him value? So we have to go and look what's available out there in terms of training and match that with skills. And sometimes say, what do you think of this? And explain, because they might not know. Last but not least, you'll have your cost of your training. My recommendation is use several models. In-class training is expensive and costly. So the human interaction, honestly, I have an online business, and I think there's nothing better than the human interaction. You get a lot more by seeing someone's reaction, by seeing if they even registered, by questioning each other, right? But if you do only that, it's not effective. You will not have budget to train all your people. That's one. 2, it's not effective because some things just need a refresher. Example, how do I send, that's my biggest pet peeve, by the way. How do you send your out of office when you're out of office? I, for example, like everyone that works in my team to send me an invite that is for a full day that is free. That way it goes on top of my Outlook. It doesn't look like an appointment, so when I open my Outlook in the morning, I know who's out. So sometimes people just need a refresher. That doesn't need a class training. That needs a refresher. If you remember the 3 categories, That doesn't fall under people, it falls under processes, right? Sometimes, some things are more tactical. They don't require the emotional interaction. How to modify a PowerPoint presentation. Whether I'm sitting in front of you showing it, or you're watching someone on YouTube, or in a class that's an online training, you're going to get very similar outputs. But the cost is like 1/10. So have a combination. Sometimes it's good to have in class, sometimes it's good to have online, and sometimes the hybrid model works very well. Hey, I don't want a whole bunch of people that don't know anything about my subject, so the class in person will be 3 days. At $1,500 a day, that's very expensive. So here's the prep. Come ready, do the online training, and then we'll do it 1 day. So then in your business case, because we're going back, you can show originally it would cost this much. By adding technology and this much of an investment in an online training platform, or by signing up for this or for that, we just saved that much more money. Last but not least, calculating the ROI. And always put a disclaimer, that's just what we're able to calculate. Because there's a lot of intangibles that are great value. So far, so good? Does anyone have any questions? Do I proceed? Good? All right. I put this here, I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with it, but since we were talking ROI, I wanted to put an example of a calculation of an ROI in case some people are not as mathematically inclined, but it's a very simple math. It's what's your benefit, what's your cost, multiplied by 100. Here's an example. Your cost for a program for 25% participants was $88,000. The benefit that you're going to get out of it is an increase in sales. Now, it doesn't become all your sales, right? It's the benefit. So it's an increase in sales by 230.
How do you calculate that part? The benefits?
So that part you have to say, listen, our goal is to increase sales by 15%. And we think by empowering our team, today they're not able to meet it because they're not using the right sales techniques. They're very tactical, they're not strategic, they don't know how to have a consultative mindset, right? So the moment you're going to go that route and be that precise, you better have really honed in on a tangible, measurable benefit. In a simpler example, in our call center, our surveys say that we are 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10 is not acceptable for a call center. We should be at least between 8.5 or 9. We believe the reason we are is because our people don't know how to be customer-centric. So we think we're going to give them customer-centric training. We want to give them, some of our guys are not well-spoken in language, so we're going to give language classes. So you pinpoint areas based on your conversations. You're going to have to be a detective, which is the job of the HR person on a regular basis anyways, right? Someone comes and makes a complaint, you're a detective. Right now, you want to put a training program, you got to be a detective. Where is it really? Before you get challenged, challenge yourself and challenge the team. So, in some areas where we know that it's like a very obvious problem, you can measure it like this. Another one, you want to give people better presentation skills. The link might not be that direct. And that's why I kept saying, in that case, you're better off going with the statistics that show you the reverse. What happens if we don't? We start losing employees. We can't retain them. What's the cost of hiring the next guy? In general, statistically, if you look online, you'll find enough evidence why putting money in training is paramount. That's like having a company and not putting money in marketing and saying, I don't need it. The moment you stop advertising or having a marketing plan, you chose your death. That's why most companies find the percentage of their top line that always goes into marketing. It's the same thing. Investing in your people is part of it. Once you have a system and you've done it 1 year, if you want to continue getting the money after that, follow that model. Year on year, proof and continuous improvement. So you start collecting data. You isolate the effect of training. So you start seeing where did the training that we put have positive or negative effect. We keep training our sales guys, but our sales guys keep really doing lousy. Well, is it because we're in a lousy market? So no matter how much training we give them, is it because we sell typewriters and nobody else wants typewriters anymore, right? Do we need to adapt? And that's where innovation comes in, right? You have to start figuring out what are your levers. Convert your data to monetary values. So you're going to have to start getting skilled, because at the end of the day, that is the language that most people understand. So even though they're going to give you a pass the first and second year to be able to get a budget because you told them all what's going to happen if they don't invest, by the third year, they're usually like, well, you should have had enough data by now. What have we improved? I've been giving you money. So start up front to start putting things like KPIs, key performance indicators, that you can measure. You're going to have a lot of intangibles. You will have a lot of greatness that comes with it. Employee satisfaction, mark my words, we've introduced a lot of training, and I'm a strong believer of doing IQ and EQ training. You have to have a holistic approach. If you've got just a bunch of engineers or a bunch of sales guys and all you do is just give them in their technical area of expertise, you just raise their IQ. But then a computer can replace them. Emotional intelligence is what differentiates us. Most sales happen because someone likes you. That's it. Point blank. If the guy doesn't like your face, it's not happening. Calculate your ROI, identify the intangible benefits. So I still put it there because you still gotta say, did it or did it not improve our culture? What are we doing? What do we need to change? And because we're doing things on purpose, not doing things haphazard, we've already identified what we're doing, and we're trying to see the impact of every single thing we're doing. Try not to have too many initiatives at the same time. Because way too many variables, then you can't figure out what lever caused what effect, right? And then tabulate your program costs, and that goes on in circles, because every year you get to see, well, are we putting our dollars in the right place? Anyone have any question past this point? How much time do I have?
10, 15 minutes.
10, 15 minutes?
Yeah.
More than enough. Okay. So, at eSky, when I started the company, I looked at all these things. And I realized something had to change. And there was a lot of different models of learning. And like I told you, I do believe in the human interaction. I think there's happy mediums in between. There is webinars which include human. They cost less expensive because nobody has to travel to come to the place. You can access your remote clients versus just video. I've learned recently, thank God, I'm very happy. I got my third child, which is 8 months old, right? And one thing I've learned is the way mothers learn today is very different than in the past. So, in my mom's days, you would get pregnant, you'd go to the doctor, and they'll connect you with someone from the CLSC who will come and talk to you about everything you should expect. you have questions, you ask the person, you take her number, you call her, you leave a voicemail, she'll call you back and answer it. Today, my wife never saw that, she didn't even want to see her, because there was babycenter.com. On babycenter.com, they had videos of every single e-learning, basically, of every single week and what's going to happen. Moreover, which was more impressive, they had forums where other young women who were going through the exact same thing started writing about their experience. And every now and then, one would have a complication. And you'd go find, always, out of all the millions in the world, someone who had a similar problem as you. And then you start reading, one person says, oh my God, my left side is hurting, I'm worried that it's dislodging, and the other person says, oh no, don't worry about this, do that, lie on your back, and like 60 other people would reply. You always find something, and you know what we call that? Knowledge base. Baby Center created a knowledge base that now all the stuff that the midwives and the CLSC ladies used to have is combined in a central place where we are all giving our input. And that's why I say what you're trying to do in HR is change management, changing the culture of the company. We want to have a culture of execution, a culture of training, a culture of innovation. It's got to start with something. So I created a transformational learning management system that basically leverages social media. So it's almost like a LinkedIn. It allows the employees to share. They can have groups. You can have your marketing group, have a group on their own. The HR group can have. It has wikis. And I'll explain what wikis are in a little bit, but it's like Wikipedia. It's a knowledge base. It's got chat. It's got video conference. So if you want to start doing different types of training, I've partnered up with online training providers. I've got over 8,000 different courses, all priced at a digestible. It's all micro-learning. That way, from the attention span of a millennial, all the way to someone who just doesn't want to sit in front of a computer for too long, they're all less than 10 minutes, with a few exceptions. So the idea was, I wanted to encompass a whole bunch of different things to add value. So before I dive into the actual learning management system, I just want to talk about innovation. Because the whole point at the beginning when I started speaking, I told you how to increase your bottom line by looking inside. But inside is your people. And innovation is your biggest ROI provider. Your team comes up with a new widget, or a new service offering, or a new way to offer something old you had that people wanted that way. Retail, because a lot of us here are, think of IGA 10 years ago. Some bright employee at IGA said, you know, before Amazon comes and gets us, let's start delivering the food. There's a lot of people that don't want to come all the way over here. A lot of mothers with kids, and I'm sure people will be willing to pay a minimal fee for us to deliver food. And we can daily deliver fresh food. Started, it wasn't that famous at the beginning. People got comfortable with the idea of ordering from Walmart. People order all the time from IGA now when they deliver food. Innovation. How do you spark those ideas? For you to have innovation, you have to be ready to have bad ideas. You can't. So what you want is to be able to have the mechanisms in place to have small groups try out ideas, try to do the minimum value proposition, and either win or fail quickly. Make a concept. Is the concept working? No. Why is it failing? Oh, because the market doesn't want it. Get it out. Why is it failing? Oh, because we are missing something. Okay, let's try and work on it again. Okay? So What you want to do is how do you create a culture of innovation? And this is where I was talking about creating the cells. Be able to create a team. You have to be able to spot the guys that have the innovative spark, that like to build. You can spot them a mile away. They're driven. They have the right DNA. If you read the book Good to Great, it talks about having the right people on the bus. They're people that have obsessive compulsive behavior to deliver. They will think about it because they enjoy what they do. And if you surround them with other smart people and create a small team and say, you know what, we'll take 20% of your time. I want you to work in the business. 80%, that's what I pay you for, and 20% of your time you work on the business. Come up with a laundry list of a whole bunch of things we could do. Let's create a parking lot of ideas, etc., right? Then you gotta decide what are the right tools. What's the tool that you're using for your knowledge base? Now, I created eSky to create a tool that has many of those for a small to mid-sized company. All combined in one platform to make it easy, just to reduce everybody's costs. But there are plenty of tools out there. Learn how to build knowledge base. The principle behind Wikipedia. Do you guys remember? I remember. I was going to tell you a lot about my age. Sunday midday, a gentleman with a black suit and a black tie would come knock on your door, and he would say, "Sir, would you like to try those Encyclopedia Britannicas? They will make your kids so smart. They've got information about everything from dinosaurs to how the earth was made to the pharaohs." I mean, I could sell you the first 10 volumes, right? And he would come out and he would have like a box with 10 volumes of encyclopedia. These are a must-have for any good family.
I have those.
Yeah.
I have the full set.
You have the full set?
Yeah.
You look too young to have it.
My dad got them, yeah.
And then Wikipedia came and said, hey, collectively, we know more. Our combined brains have enough information in there, more than any book would ever have. As long as we're all diligent, and each one goes and whatever information you put, you reference it, and tell us where you got it from, we'll take it for fact. And now, most research papers are referencing Wikipedia, right? So it's doable. So if you're a company that wants to have innovation, you want to be able to retain the knowledge inside your company. So there are ways to create wikis. What can you put in wikis? Lessons learned to start off, best practices. In our company, the out of office is a best practice. How to onboard a new employee is a best practice. And that way, when something goes wrong in the process, everyone else can go and edit and fill. And we're constantly feeding the machine. We're constantly making our processes better. We're constantly grabbing the knowledge of our experienced people, so when they leave, they left a legacy behind. Part of the cornerstones of a good company is motivating the employees, hey, if you're here, leave a legacy. We get to live in a beautiful North America because our parents and our parents' parents decided to leave a legacy. They were not that selfish. Let's leave a legacy. I spoke about this many times, so I'm going to skip that. So our purpose as a company was to give enterprises the opportunity to thrive in the marketplace by offering the most efficient learning management system. It's a management system that's based purely on social learning. So your people build your business, we build your people. We leverage the power of social learning. So learn, interact, engage, and grow. Benefits of e-learning. That was the coolest thing I spent time doing, FYI. More statistics that will help you make your business case. 30% productivity increase. 50% creativity boost. 60% instruction time decrease. You know what that means? That means as a supervisor, you tell the guy to do something once, then they don't remember only 20%, they come back again, you say to them again, you say, your time is very valuable. All you can do is just send them the link and you're like, hey, just rewatch the video. 353% return on investment for every dollar spent. That's based on an Accenture white paper done for over 2,000 companies throughout North America. Improved employee engagement, because it's a very social, I have a social wall just like Facebook in it, where if you find an article you like that you think will be pertinent, I mean, it's good, and you train your employees to be responsible, and you have a moderator, if they put something improper, they can take it off. And you can track retention with it, and you can track who's doing what. What we've done is we've basically combined 3 platforms into one. We have a powerful learning management system. So if you're familiar with a learning management system, there's content. You can track what people are doing. We added a social network site on top, so chat. We added video conferencing. We added wikis, forums, social groups, social classes, an ability to create surveys in case HR needs it. So we tried to see what are the most tools that will help someone in the HR profession get everything under one roof. And then e-commerce search engine for those who want it. Like if an association wants to sell courses, we offer that. Otherwise, we shut that off if it's for your company. So no travel required and reduced cost of the LMS. And because you're a COPA and CHMMA, did I say it right?
Good enough.
Good enough? Close enough? Basically, as a valued member of the association, when you buy courses from us, then the learning management system is yours. If you want the learning management system and you want to use it on your own, there's a price for that. But as long as you're buying training from us, then you can use our learning management system. It's powerful, cloud-based, and social. We like to claim what iTunes is to music, East Guys to e-learning. It's got a whole bunch of different things that I spoke about. So for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through every single one, but I already spoke about every single one of those. We do have both the learning management system and online training. A lot of the courses that we have, most of them, are 10 minutes average or less. And this is the part that I love the most. You can go create your own courses. We created a wizard. And what this allows you, one, it allows you to put documents. So if you're going to give a project management course, for example, and you've got some very smart guys that created a estimation tool in Excel and you want to upload it because you have your own things, you could do that. It's got a survey tool. It's got a forum tool. It allows you to create your own courses, your own tests. You can create social groups. You can have a group chat. You can have video conference. And you can have a reporting on every single one of the courses. For the HR person, well, from the back end, you can monitor everyone to the second. You can distribute. For example, you can create a class and call it leadership. And with one click of a button, you can say, I want everyone in leadership group to have this, and all of them will have it. You can have a Dropbox. So you can have some PDFs that you've made, or a presentation, corporate presentation, or HR policy, and you drop it and say, everyone go read it and make it into like a mini course where they have to. We also have an area where you can take attendance for an in-person, so you can keep track of everything, so you can have one tracking tool for compliance. You can assign supervisors to monitor people. When you look at our solution compared to others, now, people don't realize, but the learning world, we learn from plenty of different forums. YouTube could be a learning forum. They're a content provider. Everyone can go. The problem is, if your employees spend the time deciphering what's high quality content on YouTube versus what's not, they might lose a lot of valuable time and get distracted, right? What we've done is we've congregated and we went with best in class and award-winning content providers. All our content providers are award-winning in certain categories, whether it's sales, customer service, etc. They complement each other. Then you have LMS providers like Moodle, Oracle, Docebo. A lot of them are catching up in some of the stuff we've done, but they can load courses, they can give courses, they try to keep it as simple as possible because they want to respect their MVP. Then you have LinkedIn. I knew that I was doing something great when LinkedIn went and purchased Lynda, and they realized you need to combine social media with learning. But we offer everything that you see there that I spoke about. In addition to a skills wheel, which requires a bit of customization if a company needs it, which allows you to put every course add skills to it, and you get to see for every employee what's his skills with. Everything past this point is just talking about the type of courses we have, from courses like Bud to Boss, what you do when you go from being a buddy to becoming a supervisor, to leadership, HR toolkits. We've got courses that give credit for SHRM or PMI if people are collecting their PDUs. We've got courses in compliance, business skills, software skills, verbal, nonverbal communication, DISC, PowerPoint, how to be an impactful presenter, how to do your elevator pitch, etc., etc., etc. We can talk about those after if you guys want when we take a break. I don't want to overrun my time. But if you're using Office 365, every single one of the tools in Office 365, including QuickBooks, we've got all the training. It comes in one package. And these courses are trusted by big companies. Cool? So, with that being said, does any of you guys have any questions? None? Zero? I was clear like water?
Very clear, Malak.
Perfect. Thank you guys for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.